Hey everybody, and welcome to Rise and Grind. Time to have a coffee. And talk about some news. If you all have news articles, put them in the chat. But one of the first ones that I have here is mayors of 5 big cities seek meeting with Biden on how to better manage migrants. Sounds promising, hopefully, and not manage as in manage to not have them come to the country in the first place. Let's see what's happening with this article. This is from the Associated Press. The mayors of Chicago, Denver, Houston, Los Angeles, and New York, oh, those are good. Those are good cities, are pressing to meet with Joe Biden to get getting federal help to manage the surge of migrants they're saying arriving in their cities with little to no coordination, support, or resources from the administration. The Democratic leaders say that in a letter obtained by the Associated Press that while they appreciate Biden's efforts so far, more needs to be done. Yeah, we can always do more and do better. Migrants are sleeping in police station foyers in Chicago. In New York, a cruise ship terminal was turned into a shelter. In Denver, the number of migrants arriving has increased tenfold, and available space in shelters for them has withered. With fewer available work authorizations, these migrants cannot find work that would allow them to get into proper housing. Ooh, that's not good. In crisis, we have folks here who are desperately wanting to work, and we have employers who are desperately wanting to hire them, and we have a federal government that's standing in the way of employers who want to hire employees to work. This is kind of like an insidious thing as well, too, like, because they probably want to, like, it's gonna, like, drive down wages or other things, but, like, this is why we need a minimum wage and some other things to, like, govern these other policies on the back end. So it's interesting. Also signing on were the mayor of 4 large cities, Eric Adams of New York, Los Angeles. We already talked about that. The situation in the U.S. has vexed the Democratic president, who is... So at the border, we're having problems. He's increasingly under fire from members of his own party who are managing the growing number of migrants in their cities. Yeah, interesting. Like, yeah, we're gonna have migrants all the time, and how do you like actually deal with that so that you set people up for success, right? Because they have, like, they're either like refugees or they are migrating from their place. It's like one of the biggest things we can do is, like, make other countries better around the world, and also help them when they come here, because we have plenty of resources. The richest nation in the world can absolutely afford to house all the migrants and other things, because first generation migrants, there's, like, studies out there that we could read. I believe the first generation migrants are just some of the most productive people and some of the least destructive people in terms of, like, crime and other things. So pretty sure we just should help these people. Some concerned leading states have sent migrants to so-called sanctuary cities. Stop spending your money sending migrants away and spend that money on helping them where they are, you dumb fucks. But that alone does not explain why cities are facing such an increase. In past years, when migrants arrived, they would be released and picked up by nonprofit groups before usually going to stay with a relative already in the United States, but the nationalities of these people arriving has changed and no longer have literally any place to go. Winning asylum is a long and difficult process through a badly clogged immigration court system. Yeah, getting asylum is not an easy thing to do, and once you have it, like, then you land into poverty as well, too, on top of that. In some cases, migrants may wait up to a decade. Yeah, exactly. They are released into the U.S. to wait. Some are eligible for work, blah, blah, blah. So thousands are in limbo, unable to work. Biden has requested $1.4 billion from Congress to help with this. Sounds good. Other mayors saying they're asking for that, like, 1.4 is not enough and $5 billion would be a better situation. While we're greatly appreciative of different federal funding, our city budgets and local taxpayers continue to bear the brunt of the ongoing federal crisis. Yeah, it is a federal crisis because it is a nationwide problem. Cities have historically absorbed and integrated new migrants with success. Denver spending $2 million a week on sheltering migrants. New York has surpassed a total of $1.7 billion, and Chicago spent $320 million. I don't know what the breakdown of these, but a whole bunch of money is being spent on migrants because we want people to have the best outcomes when they come to our country. So they're looking for like, I'm so glad that this is being brought up, because some of the most successful people are migrants, like first generation in a country. Like they have chosen that country to go to because they believe it will give them the biggest success, and they have left their country. So oftentimes at a macro level, looking at first generation migrants, they are some of the most successful people. That's like, it's not like a heartwarming story, but it is a story that is some positive news in the world. Like, good, fight for more for these people. One of the other interesting stories that I came across was why India is worried about the China-Bhutan border. I do not know much about the India and China border process. Here's the article in chat. This is from Newsweek. So I wanted to read this one and get some more insight around the world about what India and China have for or against each other. Right? We read about Hamas yesterday, so reading about China-Bhutan border today is right up my alley. So nestled between two Asian giants, Bhutan, a small Himalayan kingdom, is moving closer to formalizing ties with China. Wait, so Bhutan is an actual place? Let's go look this up. Bhutan? What is Bhutan, and where is it? Click on the larger map. I thought Bhutan was a region. Bhutan is its own Bhutan, officially the Kingdom of Bhutan, is a landlocked country in South Asia. Oh, so it sits like Nepal, Bhutan, and India is there. I thought Bhutan was just a regional thing, not an actual country. Interesting, good to know. Nepal and Bangladesh are located near Bhutan but do not share a land border with it. The country has a population of over 727,000. Territory ranks 133rd in terms of area and 160th in population. Bhutan is constitutional monarchy with a king as the head of state and a prime minister as the head of government. Founded in 1907. Got it. 2.6 billion GDP. Almost 15,000 square miles. Okay. I thought Bhutan was just a region. Good to know. That informs some of the thoughts that I have about this article. So look, when you don't know things, look things up. Bimka, hello. We're learning about Bhutan, which is an actual country. I didn't know that. I thought it was just a region, because it says why India is worried about the China-Bhutan border. So when we read about Hamas yesterday, I wanted to read about this. So Bhutan country. I thought it was a city or maybe a region. Actual country, because I don't know all the countries in the world. So learning. China and Bhutan share a 250-mile-long border, but don't have official diplomatic ties. Well, that sounds problematic. If that situation changes, it could have profound implications for the region. The Bhutanese delegation, led by Foreign Minister, I'm going to butcher this name, Tandi Dorjai. All the countries and their capitals in college. Hell yeah. But also we can forget things, and it's okay to learn things as well too, on top of this. So Bhutan is talking to China because they don't actually have official ties. During the talks, the heads of both sides signed a cooperation agreement between the government of the People's Republic of China and Bhutan on the functions of China-Bhutan Joint Technical Group on boundary delimitation and demarcation. I'm not going to worry too much about the border, is what it says. The language may have been dry and technical, but the repercussions could be anything but. In the unprecedented meeting, the Bhutanese foreign minister also met with China's vice president, a former member of the Chinese Communist Party. The latest talks are significant because they illustrate how the pace of discussion between China and Bhutan has established normal diplomatic relations has picked up, a development that will unsettle New Delhi amid worsening relationships with the two regional giants. But why? Why is it worsening? 2021, Bhutan and China agreed to a 3-step roadmap to resolve border disputes, which date back decades. Interesting. So they've already had border disputes. Only 7 such meetings have taken place in 34 years. So once every 3 or 4 years, they have a meeting. That's like very slow, but China and Bhutan were successfully negotiate border disputes and establish official diplomatic ties. Beijing would be used the feat for public messaging to the world that it can resolve disputes through peaceful negotiations. Yeah, that's pretty good. Bhutan's government based in their capital, Thimphu. I'm butchering that, I'm sure. Is a constitutional monarchy, remaining one of the last remaining sovereign Himalayan kingdoms. India has historically acted as Bhutan's security guarantor under a special relationship governed by a 1949 treaty and an updated that treaty in 2007. Okay. Oh, so this is viewed as, okay, that treaty between Bhutan and India is viewed by China and the rest of the region as like India controlling Bhutan. Beijing is pushing Bhutan to establish direct diplomatic relations, but that would require them to change the policy of not having formal diplomatic ties with any permanent United Nations Security Council members. Bhutan doesn't have official diplomatic relationship with the U.S., allowing India to mediate. Oh, okay. Okay, interesting. So I didn't realize that treaty, we should I'd have to go like way too in depth, but the treaty that India is going to protect Bhutan is actually ruining Bhutan's like own sovereignty, basically. Bhutan is like not able to like manage its own shit. Like, super interesting. So like Bhutan establishing diplomatic ties, it's not undermining India, but India is like strangleholding Bhutan in a way, is like the takeaway that I have of this article. There are like interesting, like, okay, that's like really interesting. So the piece of information to take away here is that India has like handcuffed Bhutan, as it were, and Bhutan was not basically able to have its own like sovereignty or whatever it may be. With that said, it's like, is this good, is this bad? I don't know. It's like very interesting, and like basically they get to have their own sovereignty. They're also still a monarchy, which is like so weird in the modern times that you still have like a true monarchy. So weird. I mean, the UK has a monarchy as well too, which is just like, ugh, gross. So all these like things to like factor in. So like, what an interesting story. There's more to that article, but we'll move on to the next one. Why do I get the feeling that China-Taiwan situation is India-Bhutan situation? Yeah, wait a second. Because like, oh, India's like helping them, right? This is like the insidious thing, like, oh, India's definitely helping them. Like, don't worry like about it. India's definitely helping them. And it's like, are they? You're like, you have this guise of like, we're helping them. We have this treaty with them for the last 60 years. And it's like, actually, you've been like fucking them for the last 60 years. And you only learned from the UK on how to actually like fuck people over, because India got fucked over by the UK for so long. Interesting, right? Interesting. This next article I have is FBI warns anti-Semitism in the U.S. at historic levels. Is that historically high or historically low? It's gotta be historically high levels. This is not a feel-good story, but one of the things to... it's actually very hard to find articles right now, because all you have are Trump is in court, and all you have is Gaza, Israel murdering each other. This was like the main news that I was going through. So this article hinges on Israel, Gaza, a bunch of migrants that we were just talking about, other things, and just I wanted to do a quick read through of it, because I think it's important to note that like dumb fucks out there are being rude to other people for no reason. Instead of the biggest thing that I have a problem with, instead of like focusing on your own shit, you're bothering other people. Like racism and anti-Semitism and all this other stuff is you're out there bothering other people and you're not actually building something. Like get out there and actually build something. And if you build something I don't like, we can then talk about that. But for the most part, if you're like protesting like you know, oh, I don't like gay people, or oh, I don't like trans people, or I don't like this, like go build something. I can't even have a conversation with them about like what they're building is trash because they're just trying to tear down other people. Like, just stop trying to tear down other people. Need to remember that the anti-Semitism is an anti-Jewish error. Yeah, exactly. It's across the board, right? Like, it spews out into everything, because a post-Donald Trump world as president, like, all of the anti-Semitism, all of the racism, everyone also just wears it on the outside blatantly these days. What's funny is we couldn't get these dumb fucks to wear like masks during COVID, but now they can't stop wearing masks to hide their face because they're like, oh, I'll lose my job for my views. Yeah, your views suck. If you say, oh, I'll lose my job for my views and like what I think and what I say, yeah, what you think and say is sucks. Like, anyways, let's see here. Anti-Semitism in the U.S. is reaching historic levels in the wake of violence of Israel and Gaza. FBI Director Christopher Wray has warned. Speaking to a Senate panel on Thursday, Wray warned 60% of all religious-based hate crimes have targeted Jewish people. He added that the figure has likely increased amid anger caused by ongoing violence in Gaza. Other countries, including UK and France, have warned of this. This is a threat that is reaching, in some way, sort of historic levels. He added that although Jews make up about 2.4% of the U.S. public, they account for 60% of all hate crimes. The Jewish community is being targeted across the spectrum, is what he said. Direct quote. Another direct quote is, this is not a time for panic, but it's time for vigilance. We should stop conducting our daily lives, going to school, houses, worship, so forth, and we should be vigilant. Wait, what? Shouldn't stop. Officials across the U.S. and other countries have noted that major increase in threats to Jewish people. On Tuesday, New York officials questioned a person after threats were made against Jewish pupils at Cornell University. Oh yeah, Cornell University had a guy that was like, on Monday, Biden administration announced that it would be working to combat anti-Semitism and other things. Great. I'm so glad that the FBI director has come forward and says this is a huge problem, because it is. Not news on Russia and Ukraine. Yeah, Russia and Ukraine has slipped in the news. Like, I didn't actually see a single article as I was scrolling for news articles about Russia and Ukraine. The news from last week, but have you talked about this one? Click. We did talk about that one. You said it's so great for trans people. That was actually on episode 1. So on episode 1, we talked about how Japan is no longer forcing sterilization upon people who come out as trans. Because to come out as trans, they were forcing people to have surgery and forcing people to be sterilized, which is interesting because like a lot of trans people maybe just don't want surgery. They will go with like whatever parts they have, but they will be male or female presenting or non-binary presenting. So like you have probably met trans people. Like some people are like, oh, I've never met a trans person, blah blah blah. It's like same people saying I've never met like a billionaire or a millionaire, and it's like that's not true. You definitely have, but these people aren't flashy. Yeah, Bimka, they have reversed, or it has brought they have said you do not have to be forced sterilized. I don't think they have said you have to stop getting forced surgery, which is also invasive, and like a lot of trans people do not want to have surgery. Like, it's whatever the person wants. If the person wants to have top bottom surgery, if the person wants to be sterilized, if the person wants something else, but no, they were forcing sterilization upon people. It's incredibly invasive, especially for like female to male, like to do like sterilization like that. So that was like the first that was in episode 1 of Rise and Grind. I think a huge thing to talk about. I'm so sad that it's like a world that we live in, but I'm so glad that the world we live in now doesn't have that anymore. Like, it's so sad that it ever existed in the first place, but so yeah, Zanker, thanks for bringing that up. Now, let me make sure I have my notes. The fast talker, India, this, that, 5 cities. Great. I have one more. More than 50 officials call on the EPA to help local governments cut food waste in their communities. One of the things that I always say is that we have so many resources. We have so many resources. One of the biggest things is that we just like throw away all food. Like all this food gets thrown away at the end of the day because they want people to pay for it or whatever, these things. We just have a distribution problem. And this is an article that like I will hopefully agree with. Hopefully it's like a step in the right direction. I could not find any feel-good articles today. These were all like mid-tier articles. But yeah, feel free to drop articles in chat where I'm happy to discuss them. On Tuesday, more than 50 local officials penned a letter urging the Environmental Protection Agency to phase out food waste disposals in landfill by 2040 to cut emissions of potent greenhouse gas methane. Yeah, one of the things with food disposal and getting it properly disposed of is that like you want to capture all the methane and do something with it. The letter came out in the wake of 2 reports from the EPA that spotlights America's food waste crisis and its detrimental environmental consequences. Number one, on average, and this is 10-year-old information, maybe it's like less than this, but on average, food travels 1,000 miles to get to you. 1,000 miles. That's insane. Number 2, all of the energy and everything else produced to make that food get to you in the first place, so much. So these 2 things, and then you just let it like rot in your fridge or these other things. So I always try to be very cognizant of these things as he says this, as he's being a huge hypocrite because he has some chicken in there that he didn't cook and needs to throw away. But I try to be very cognizant of these things and eat very specifically and try not to throw out food because like 1,000 miles to get to you in the first place, usually refrigerated, and then also all of the energy it took to produce it in the first place. So more than one third of the food produced in the U.S. is never consumed. Much of that waste ends up in landfills where it generates an astounding amount of toxic methane gas. That's true. And I would also argue that even further, if anyone is like overweight like myself, I'm actually eating too much food. So not only are we throwing away 1/3 of all food, we're overeating probably another 1/3 of all food because it didn't need to be eaten in the first place because like we all have too many calories. It's so easy to get calories, he says as he slurps on a coffee with some milk in it. So like we can distribute more food to people if we eat less and throw away less. So this is why I believe that we are in a post-scarcity society, and it like makes me so mad. Food waste causes more than 58% of methane emissions that come from landfills. The EPA said on October 19th, the report that calculated those emissions for the first time. Wait, what? For the first time? Oh no. The U.S. Department of Agriculture and the EPA set a goal in 2015 to cut food waste in half by 2030, but very little has been made because we also look at 2030 being so far away. And the EPA has been criticized for underinvesting in the issue, says Reuters. I'm glad we have municipal composting. Yeah, we have composting, and I also get to send all of my yard waste there too, but we also just produce very little compost. Without fast action, the methane, because like the other thing that people talk about methane production is like when we eat beef, the methane production from the beef industry is like very, very high. So like you should do what you can to like limit your beef intake. It's also like pretty bad for your red meat. Like occasionally having red meat's probably fine, like once a week, but like these people that have red meat, like I don't know, every other day, it's probably like pretty bad for like your overall health and long-term, success. But yeah. Well, let's read the last paragraph here. Without fast action, methane local governments will increasingly face the impacts of warming temperatures, sea level rise, and extreme weather events. The officials said in their joint letter to the agency, they also called on the EPA to update landfill standards to require better prevention, detection, and reduction of methane emissions. Yeah, typically they cover these things over and then capture the methane and then we burn it or something else. So it's not good that the methane is produced in the first place, but like we have ways of like dealing with it. Landfills are responsible for about 14% of U.S. methane emissions, the EPA found. Reuters added that compared to carbon dioxide, another powerful greenhouse gas, methane is 28 times stronger over a 100-year period. So reduce, reuse, recycle. The thing to take away from this article is that food waste is like real bad. Like real bad. And then the thing is that if we throw away 1/3 of all food produced, we just have a distribution problem. Like we need to get food out into the hands of people who will consume it. If there's anyone going hungry in the world, we have food for them. 1/3 of all food is thrown away. Why? Anyways, so those were the 4 articles that I had. Is if people have comments, questions, or concerns in chat, or other articles to share. As I turbo blasted, you have me on 2x, so if not, we'll sign off for Rise and Grind. Thanks everyone for being here. If you're on YouTube, go ahead and press the follow button. If you're on Twitch, go ahead and press the subscribe button. And as always, we will see you for the next one.